Hi my dear children, welcome to yet another class of the chapter 3 Fiber to Fabric. In the previous class what we have studied? We studied about the processing of wool from fibers, how wool is obtained from the fibers of sheep. In this chapter we are studying about two types of animal fibers. First that we studied about wool and second is silk. Where do we obtain silk? Silk is obtained from the cocoon of silk moth. Silk is obtained from cocoon of silk moth. Silk fibers are obtained from the cocoon of silk moth. And this silkworm spins the silk fibers. Silkworm spins the silk fibers or cocoon. Silkworm spins what? The cocoon. Next, what is sericulture? It is the process of rearing of silkworm. The rearing of silkworm or the cultivation or the growing of silkworm for obtaining silk is known as sericulture. Sericulture. What is sericulture? The rearing of silkworms for obtaining silk. Rearing or growing or cultivation. Rearing of silkworm. Rearing of silkworm for obtaining silk. For obtaining silk is known as sericulture. Rearing of silkworm for obtaining silk is known as sericulture. And next we have to study about the life history of silk moth. The life of the silk moth. In the life of silk moth, it contains various stages from starting from its egg to the silk moth consists of various stages in its life cycle. Let us know about what are the stages in the life cycle of silk moth. Firstly, the adult silk moth or the female adult silk moth lays hundreds of eggs at a time. Female adult silk moth. Female silk moth. Silk moth means the butterfly. Female butterfly lays eggs, hundreds of eggs at a time. And where do they lay eggs? They lay eggs under the mulberry leaf. They lay eggs on mulberry leaves. And the eggs hatch and the larvae is called caterpillar or silkworm. This female silk moth lay eggs and the eggs hatch into what? Larvae called caterpillar. Larvae called caterpillar or silkworm. Then when the caterpillar grows to a certain age, when it reaches a particular age or particular size, it starts to weave a net around it. The caterpillar is ready to enter into its next stage of its life cycle called pupa. This caterpillar enters into the next stage of its life called pupa. Then when it becomes pupa, start to enter the next stage of its life cycle, it do what? It spins a net around itself. It weaves a net around its body in the form of figure 8. This caterpillar spins a net around its body in the figure in the shape of the figure 8. During this movement, it moves its head in the figure of 8. This caterpillar moves its head in the figure of 8 likewise. During this movement, it produces a secretion from its mouth. While it is moving its head in the shape of 8, it produces a secretion from its mouth, and this secretion, when exposed to air, it hardens and forms the silk fiber. This pupa secretes a secretion from its mouth, and this secretion is made up of protein. This secretion is made up of protein, and when this secretion is exposed to air, it hardens and forms the silk fiber. So what is silk fiber? It is a secretion produced from the mouth of silkworm to produce a net, or to produce a net to hold itself. Soon the caterpillar completely covers itself with the silk fiber. Within minutes, the caterpillar secretes or completely covers itself by this secretion, and then it forms silk fiber, and this covering is known as cocoon. So what is cocoon? The covering of pupa made up of silk fiber is called cocoon. What is cocoon? The covering of this silkworm with the silk fiber is called cocoon. The further development of the pupa into moth takes place inside the cocoon. The further development of the pupa takes place in the cocoon, and after complete development over, what the caterpillar will do? If silk moth arises from the cocoon, new silk moth arises from the cocoon. Thus it completes its life cycle. Once again, listen to the life cycle of the silk moth. First, the female silk moth lays hundreds of eggs under mulberry leaves, and the eggs hatch into larvae or caterpillar. When this caterpillar reaches a certain age, it starts to weave a net around itself to hold it. And this stage is called a pupa. And during that time, for the production or for the weaving of net, it moves its head in the form of figure 8. At that time, a secretion is produced from its mouth, and that secretion is made up of protein, and this secretion, when exposed to air, hardens and forms silk fiber. Soon the caterpillar completely covers itself with this silk fiber, and it included in that cocoon. That stage is called a cocoon. And the further development of the pupa take place inside the cocoon, and from the cocoon new silk moth arises. Then that is the life cycle about the silk moth. The silk yarn obtained from the cocoon of the silk yarn is obtained. We get silk yarn from where? From this cocoon. There is a variety of silk moths which look very different. We can see a variety of silk moths in different color, different shape, size, etc. And thus we get different types of silk in different textures. There is a different types of silk moth which produces different types of silk with different textures. Like elastic silk, then smooth silk, coarse silk, shiny silk, etc. Thus we get different types of silk from the textile shop like Tassar silk, Muga silk, Kosa silk, etc. And the most common type of silk moth is mulberry silk moth. The silk fiber obtained from mulberry leaves is called that leaves on. The silk moth that leaves or eating mulberry leaves is called mulberry silk moth, and the most common silk is that mulberry silk. This silk fiber is soft, lustrous and elastic. The mulberry silk is soft, lustrous and elastic. And this sericulture is one of the very old occupation in India, and people many people depend on this industry for their occupation. Next is how silk fibers are obtained from the cocoon of silk moth. How artificially silkworms are reared for the production of silk. For obtaining silk moths are reared and their cocoons are collected to get silk thread. For obtaining silk fiber as an occupation or a culture, silk moths are reared artificially. And how silkworms are reared, that we have to study for the production of silk, how silkworms are reared. We studied what is the life history of silkworm. Now we have to study how silkworms are reared. Rearing of silkworms for the production of silk fiber. In a commercial basis, how these silkworms are reared for the production of silk. If female silk moth lays hundreds of eggs at a time, and these eggs are stored carefully on a strips of paper or cloth, and these eggs are sold to farmers, those who do this cultivation. The farmers keep the eggs under very hygienic conditions, and when they get favorable season, they start to hatch the larvae. The farmers keep the eggs under hygienic conditions, under suitable conditions of temperature and humidity. The eggs are warmed to suitable temperature. When the eggs are warmed to with a suitable temperature to hatch the larvae, and during which time, when the mulberry tree bears a fresh crop of leaves, the farmers hatch the larvae. The farmers hatch the eggs to produce the larvae at what condition? At a favorable condition. What is the condition? When the mulberry crop bears a fresh crop of leaves. The larvae need food. What the larvae will eat? The larvae will eat only mulberry leaves, fresh mulberry leaves. So these farmers hatch the eggs with a suitable temperature at which condition? When the mulberry crops bear a fresh crop of leaves. The larvae called caterpillar or silkworms. They eat day and night in enormously and increase its size. They eat day and night and increase their size enormously, and when they reach a certain stage, these larvae are kept in bamboo trays. The farmers kept these larvae in bamboo trays along with the freshly chopped mulberry leaves. After 25 to 30 days, when this caterpillar continuously eat day and night, and after reaching a particular size, they stop eating and they enter to a next chamber on a bamboo tray to spin cocoons. And after spinning cocoons, the farmers collect these cocoons, and thus rearing of silkworms take place. And then the next step is processing of silk. How silk is processed or how silk is obtained from processing of silk. We studied about how silkworms are reared for obtaining silk. How silkworms are reared? The eggs of silkworms are sold to farmers, and the eggs are stored in suitable hygienic conditions, and when favorable season comes, the farmers will hatch the eggs to produce the larvae. And what is the favorable conditions? When mulberry crops bear a fresh crop of leaves, and when the larvae is produced, the farmers give them a fresh crop of mulberry leaves, and this caterpillar eat day and night continuously to 25 to 30 days, and they increase in size enormously, and after that they enter into the next stage called a pupa. At that time they stop their eating and they enter into its next stage of its life cycle called a pupa, and they spin a net around itself to hold. And during this time, the farmers collect the cocoons for the production of silk. For the processing of silk, a pile of cocoons is needed. A pile of cocoons is needed for the production of silk. The cocoons are kept under sun or boiled or exposed to steam for obtaining the silk, or to get separated the cocoon and the caterpillar. We have to get the silk fiber. For that separation, the cocoon contains the caterpillar and the fiber. We have to separate those two. We get only the silk. We want to get the silk fiber only. For that process, what they do? They put the cocoon inside the boiled water or exposed to sun or exposed to steam. During that time, the silk fibers separate out, and this process of taking out threads from the cocoon for the use of silk is known as reeling of silk. The cocoon is like a bundle. We have to unwind that thread. That process is called reeling. So what is reeling? Unwinding of the thread from the cocoon is known as reeling of silk. Reeling of silk. What is reeling of silk? Unwinding of silk fiber from the cocoon is known as the process of taking out of threads from the cocoon by unwinding process is known as reeling. Reeling is done by special machines which unwind the threads, and thus silk fibers are obtained for the production of silk to make silk clothes, silk sarees, etc. Okay, thank you children.